Hello, everyone, and welcome to the October 24th Women in Product Toastmasters Club meeting. I'm your Sergeant at Arms, Amy Kirkland, and today our theme is What's on your PM tool belt? Analytics, design, road mapping, and task management are just a few of the examples of the many tasks that we do as product managers, where there's an abundance of tools that help us. Let's hear more about what's in a product manager's tool belt today. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Erica Tamburo, our president.
Thank you, Amy. Welcome, everybody. Happy fall. The theme of the month is gratitude. And I have a couple quotes to share with you guys for today about gratitude. This one's from Gertrude Stein. Silent gratitude isn't very much use to anyone, which I think is a fabulous thing to think about. Not only sharing our gratitude with others, but even just taking a moment to think about what we're grateful for ourselves can have a huge impact. And if you already don't have some kind of scheduled gratitude time in a journal, I highly recommend. It'll really change how you show up in the world. The second quote, which I forgot to write who it's from, I'm sorry. Gratitude makes sense of our past, brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow. So for all of you product managers who are thinking about vision constantly, I thought that was a great quote to share with everybody. So for our announcements, just a reminder that you are always invited to club leadership meetings. Come join us, check it out, see what it's all about. We meet the second Wednesday of the month, and we'd love to have you so you can see what all work goes on behind the scenes and get involved yourself. And February is a couple months away, but it will be here very soon. So start thinking about the club contests. We have a speech contest in the spring. Toastmasters will announce what type of speeches they're looking for. But one of the winners from our club contest day will be awarded the Women in Product Toastmasters Club speaker slot for the upcoming Women in Product conference. So please, even if you don't think you're ready for the conference yet, now's the time to start just thinking about what your expertise is and what you want to share with other fellow women in product. If you would like to learn more about the Women in Product conference, stay after today, and we'll talk about what opportunities our collaboration with Women in Product makes for you guys. Scheduling wise, there's no meeting January 2nd, which I know everybody was like, oh my gosh, January 2nd, are we having a meeting? You probably weren't, but anyway, no meeting January 2nd. We're not shifting the schedule. We're just going to cancel that meeting. So everybody have a great January 1st. You don't have to be here on the 2nd. All right, so stay after if you'd like to, if you have any questions or want to learn more about the Women in Product Conference. And we always take a moment to welcome our guests. Today, I'm going to ask you to either, number one, share your favorite tool, since that's the theme of today's meeting, or you can share what you're grateful for, which is our monthly theme. So either one of those would be awesome for you to share with us. Let's see, where are Bonnie? Would you like to introduce yourself and share one of those two things with us?
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me. It's my first time here at this Toastmasters. And I'll take the first one. What is my favorite tool as a product manager, or actually just as a person in general to manage in general? I will say that my absolute favorite tool, and excuse me for putting in parentheses tools, because they don't work without one another, it's a pen and notebook. And the reason for this is because with a pen and notebook, I can plan roadmaps, I can put down my thoughts, I can troubleshoot, things with the details that I have documented. Obviously I can take notes with them, and I can do virtually almost any kind of thing except for delegating things directly to somebody else. But the pen and paper are absolutely the best tools for me. I know we're in a world of digital technology, but even so, without the pen and paper, I don't think I can manage my day very well.
I love it. Fabulous answer. Thanks for finding us, Bonnie, and for joining us today.
Thank you.
Shruti, would you like to share?
Yeah, sure. Hi, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here. This is my first Toastmasters meeting. I'd like to share my favorite tool. Actually, there are two tools. I really like Notion to organize everything. And second is Slack, especially because sometimes when people type something, you cannot always respond in words. And the fact that you can respond by emojis to each comment, I really like that. And people feel that they can be heard. So I really like that feature. And the fact that they have all the past conversations stored there really helps. And if I may, I would also like to share what I'm grateful for. I'm really grateful for the wonderful, beautiful weather and atmosphere in Bay Area, and all the variety of fruits and vegetables that we get here. And I enjoy that. And I also enjoy the diversity in people. So I'm really grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shruti. Thanks for joining us today. Let's see, do we have any other guests? Siri, I think you're a guest.
Hello. Hi, Erika. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. This is Siri. This is my second session as a guest, and I'm planning to join soon as a member. I would like to share some of my favorite tools. At the top of my mind, I can only think of to-do list items. So I would say OneNote is the go-to for me to keep track of all the pending items as well as like what to do. I also heard of this app called Todoist, and I'm planning to try it out. And thanks for the suggestion, Shruti. I'll also try out Notion. This is there on my list of things to try. So that's something that I like in terms of PM tools.
So much. So glad you're here today. Am I missing anybody else? I don't think so. All right. Without further ado, I will introduce our Toastmaster of the day, Miss Lori Edwards, or Mrs., who I'm sorry, I just saw her and I'm dying of laughter. I am so looking forward to today. I can't even handle it. Lori is a senior product manager at Niche. If you are ever on the web searching for information on schools, colleges, you might find yourself on Niche like I did a couple of weeks ago, and I hadn't realized it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Lori. Lori is one of the co-founders of the Women in Product Club, and thanks to her asking in the Women in Product forum, hey, how do you guys, how do you guys better yourself as speakers? And here we are today. So it's been a real pleasure starting the club with Lori. I learn a lot from her. She's a fantastic leader, and I can't wait to see what she's got in store for today. So thank you, Lori.
Well, thank you, Erica, and welcome fellow Toastmasters and guests. I'm actually going to be your tool master today. But before we jump into our scheduled programming, I'd like to take a moment to share a little bit more about our actual topic today. So by a show of hands, how many of you have a go-to tool, exercise, or technique you love to use to solve challenges that come up at work? Lots of us. All right, well, if you have any of those that come to mind, feel free to throw them in the chat. And while you all are doing that, I'm actually going to give the club an inside look into my own tool belt. So that's right, I am wearing a tool belt today, brought to you by my husband, who's actually a construction worker. and by myself, who is the only person in my family and his that have never worked in construction. And we are 4 generations into construction workers in our family. So as you can tell, I'm the outcast, but I still got the tools I need to get the job done. I'm also wearing pants today in Zoom. So this is a special day. I put them on just for you all because I knew I'd be showing you my tool belt. So don't worry, I have actual pants on. All right, anyways, back to product management. What is in my tool belt? So let me adjust my camera a little bit. You will see I have tools on this side, tools on this side. There's even some things back here. So the first section of my tool belt goes with what Bonnie said. I also am a pen and paper type of person. I got pens for Sharpies, highlighters, regular pen, whiteboard marker, when, you know, those days when we used to go to the office. I also have a notebook called a Rocket Book that you can actually put your notes in and then take a picture and it sends it to your Google Drive. And sticky notes. Who doesn't love sticky notes? Today, these are all done virtually, but I still use old-fashioned sticky notes. And the way that my tool belt is divided is really into 3 sections. So this section is around discovery items. Similar to what Bonnie also says, you can basically make anything in here. You can find and solve any problem that you might want to on this side. Once we figure out what we're going to actually solve, we're going to need to measure it. So on this side, I got multiple types of measuring tools. A regular old tape measure. This is a sewing tape measure, in case you need to know the circumference of something. But this is really where I try to store all my data on this side and dive into it so I know if I'm actually successful or not in whatever problem I'm trying to solve. Now this last little section back here, you might see, oh, are those more notebooks? Well, these are really around execution. So my last part of my tool belt is really around execution. And this is a pocket guide for the Luma Institute around design thinking. So we've all heard about design thinking. We actually did a meeting about design thinking. So if you want to go back and watch it, you can. But this really gives me all kinds of tools to be able to actually execute on the work that we're doing. So I can help my team and my stakeholders come to a consensus and really help define the work that we're trying to do so we can get it out the door. So that's an inside look at my tool belt that I have for you all today. And I am excited that we have 3 club speakers coming up that's going to share more about their tool belt with you. We're going to have an impromptu speaking session, which we'll be able to ask questions to anybody. Our table topics master will be doing that. And then we will have a round of evaluation so we can all get great feedback on the things that we've spoke about today, so we can be better even the next time that we saw it. So before we jump directly into our scheduled programming, we're going to take a minute, and the agenda has already been shared in the chat, but you can also find it in the meeting invite. And we are going to have our general evaluator, which is actually our president, Erica Tamburo, talk about each of the roles. So we all know what each person will be doing within the meeting and what you all can expect if you are a guest. So with that, I am going to ask Erica to come back up to the stage and introduce her team and give each one of her team members a moment to explain a little bit more about the role that they'll be doing in today's club meeting. Erica?
Thank you, Lori. So I am the general evaluator for the day, and the purpose of the general evaluator is to evaluate everything that happens in the context of the meeting today. During the meeting, I'll take notes on everything that happens and give a little report at the end of the meeting. And I'm going to ask each part of the team to introduce their roles and tell us a little bit about what your role is for today. So we have 3 evaluators for 3 speeches today, Monique, Tanya, and Sam. Monique, would you like to share about what your role is?
Sure, I will be evaluating Amelia today, and she's giving her first icebreaker. So I'll be paying attention to, for her speech, she is going to be introducing herself and also looking at the basic structure of a speech today.
Wonderful, thank you so much. For those of you who are new to Toastmasters, all speeches are evaluated right during that day at the end of the meeting. So evaluation is really core to what we do here, and what our gift is to each other is giving, evaluating, and receiving so that we can all grow. Today we also have a grammarian. Meghana, would you like to share on what you'll be doing today?
Of course. Do I also go over word of the day at this time, or would that follow later?
Word of the day is a little bit later.
Okay. All right. I'm grammarian today. As a grammarian, it is my responsibility to pay close attention to all the speakers, listening carefully to their language usage. I'll also take note of any improper language, as well as any outstanding words, quotes, sayings, or thoughts. As grammarian, it is also my duty to introduce the word of the day, which will be following soon.
Thank you. Minal is our awe counter for the day. Minal, would you like to let everybody know what you'll be doing?
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. The purpose of the awe counter is to note words and sounds that are used as a crutch or pause filter by anyone who speaks. During the meeting, I'll listen for overused words, including and, well, but, so, and you know. I will also be listening for filler sounds, including I will also note when a speaker repeats a word or phrase such as I, or this means. At the end of the meeting, I'll report the number of times that each speaker used these expressions. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Minal. And next up, we have our timer, Paisley.
Hello, let me remove this sticky note here. Yes, I'm the timer. I'll be timing the speeches and as well as the table topic session to give people an idea of how much time they're taking. And we'll also give warnings when they either approaching overtime or in a good spot based on the color of my background. So if you see my background changing, that's why.
Thank you, Paisley. Vote counter. Do we have a vote counter yet?
We do not, Erica.
Okay. At the end, we'll probably have a vote counter, and the vote counter is for table topics session. So table topics. I guess I could let Sheena introduce what table topics is, and then we'll talk about vote counter.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. I'm Sheena, and I will be the table topics master for today. The goal of the table topic session is to challenge us to just improve our impromptu speaking skills. So this gives us the opportunity to formulate a structured answer to a question on the spot. So what I'll do is say a question, and then I'll pause for a few seconds, and then I will pick someone to answer. The speaker will have 1 to 2 minutes to respond to the question, and to make things a little fun, we will have a vote at the end. We'll figure out who's counting votes. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Sheena. And we invite all of our guests to participate today in table topics. If you would not like to participate, please message Sheena so she knows not to call on you. But I encourage you to have some fun today because we love to have fun with each other and practice, and you'll enjoy it. All right, so without further ado, I will let Meghana let us know what the word of the day is.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. For today's meeting, the word is evangelize, which means to promote something enthusiastically or to talk about how good you think something is. For today's meeting, the word is evangelize. A few examples of using the words are, now these examples come from the publications or newspapers, so these are real examples. the first example is one reader continues to evangelize the power of remote work, encouraging me to lean into the change. Second example is they were evangelizing about the importance of saving energy. Another example, slightly longer, entrepreneur guru Gary Vaynerchuk says he's been waiting for this moment since 2010 and that the next 36 months will be incredible as he uses his platforms to evangelize for NFTs. I would like to repeat again. So for today's meeting, the word is evangelize, which means to promote something enthusiastically or to talk about how good you think something is. Each speaker is encouraged to use the word of the day. I will give the grammarian's report when called upon during the meeting and also report on the usage of word of the day. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Megana. And without further ado, I'll hand it back to Lori to lead us.
Thank you, Erica. So getting with our scheduled programming today, our first speaker is going to be Amelia, and her speech is titled Change in Perspective. It is her icebreaker speech, so her first speech in this club, but her pathway is presentation mastery. So Amelia is currently a product manager at an early stage startup based in San Francisco. In her spare time, she enjoys reading, cooking, and listening to podcasts. So with that, let's welcome Amelia to the stage.
Thank you, Madam Toolmaster. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be speaking to you all for the very first time today as a member of this club. And since it is my first time, I am also pretty nervous. This mix of excitement and anxiety is how I've felt navigating several new experiences lately, such as moving into a new apartment, beginning several new friendships, and like millions of Americans, starting a new job. As PMs, we're expected to dive into new settings, context change, be adaptable and agile. I don't know about you all, but I find it can get rather exhausting. So how do we embrace change as PMs? How do we dive into new experiences with the tools and skills that we need to be successful? Now, I am still very early in my product manager journey, but I've discovered that I tend to be very action-oriented. I like to start brainstorming and whiteboarding right as soon as I hear about a problem. However, I've discovered that this might not always be the right approach, and I've started to do a different set of actions. I've started to take a step back, look at my surroundings, absorb my information, and provide an unbiased perspective instead. This is also known as a beginner's mind. It's a concept that comes from Zen Buddhism, and it's also become a very popular learning tool lately. It's an attitude of eagerness, openness, and a lack of preconceptions when approaching a new topic or subject. Many entrepreneurs, PMs, and creatives have found a lot of success using the beginner's mind. I recently read about a director of a film called Gorillas in the Mist. He was trying to film gorillas and have them act according to a script, and reasonably so found this to be a pretty difficult experience. One day, one of his interns came by and asked, "Why don't we let gorillas tell the story instead?" And so they got the idea of filming gorillas in their natural environment and filming them acting, day to day. This allowed them to add scenes and a storyline and build a film upon these scenes. This is an example of how fresh perspectives can really change an entire situation. Personally, a beginner's mind has allowed me to embrace my naivete as a strength instead of as a weakness. Once you're a couple months and years down the road into something, it's a lot harder for you to bring fresh perspectives into a situation. However, initially, a beginner's mind can come really easily. I do hope, however, that I'll continue to employ this mindset even as I get more experienced. And I'll remember to take that step back, look around, and really try bringing an unbiased perspective into situations rather than just diving into action. Another tool that's been great for me along my newbie journey, as I like to call it, is having a plan, and moreover, evangelizing this plan with other team members. I read an article from Deb Liu, the CEO of Ancestry, about her onboarding journey and a 30, 60, 90-day plan that she wrote. This was a familiar concept to me because I worked on a similar plan with a manager in the past, and I'm working on a plan for my current role. This plan really allows me to understand the learnings, the tasks, and the goals that I'd like to meet at the end of 90 days. I am also aware that I'm at a very fast-paced startup, and I don't know what 90 days are going to look like at my company. But having this document really helps me navigate the uncertainty of my situation and really helps me to find clarity amongst the chaos. Moreover, really working with other team members and hearing their perspectives and their advice and thoughts on this plan has helped me feel so much more supported along my journey and reminds me that I'm not alone. Although diving into new experiences can be a mix of highs and lows, I do think that having an open mind, a clear plan, having a supportive group of friends, and in my case, Toastmasters, can really help in tackling new challenges. I'm looking forward to adding new tools to my belt and learning so much more about myself along the way. But for today, I will embrace being a beginner. Thank you all so much.
Excellent job, Amelia. That was a great speech. All right, so timer, can I please have at least a minute on the timer or on the clock so we can ask some questions? So if anybody has a question for Amelia, you can come off mute and feel free to ask.
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
Great job, Amelia. I'm curious to know if there was something specific that happened that made you said you did a lot of brainstorming at first, and then you switched, you said something about that wasn't working, and then you switched to the beginner's mind. Was there a specific event that happened that made you change your mindset?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's really just, experiences that I've had working with managers and them, kind of giving me a task or problem that a lot of others in the past have tried exploring before. And my go-to would be, oh, let me try like whiteboarding. Let me see what other folks did. But I think what was harder for me to do is really take a step back and like take a holistic perspective of the problem and situation instead, not taking other perspectives and biases into the situation. And that was a piece of advice that I actually heard, which, kind of made me look at things in a new way.
That's great. Great job.
Thank you.
Excellent question, Tanya. And that was a great answer. I need to take some of that back myself, probably starting tomorrow. I should do the same thing. All right. Well, that puts us at the minute mark for the timer. If you have more questions, feel free to ask Amelia. She would love to hear from you, I'm sure. And also, if you have any feedback for her, even if you're not an evaluator, feedback is always welcome in our club. Feel free to DM it directly to her in Zoom, or you can write her an email with any feedback that you have as well, so she can improve even more for the next speech. Okay, up next, we have Kirsten. She did speak last meeting, but today we are here to hear part 2 of her speech, Product Risk Management Tips Part 2, and it is for her pathway of visionary communication. Our Women in Product Toastmasters member, Kirsten, joins us again from London in Europe. Yep, that's right, on the other side of the world, to present her third speech on her visionary communication path, product management or product risk management tips, part 2. She is taking feedback from our last group session. She's going to try to implement it here, and I'm sure she's going to do great. And she's going to give us the second half of those tips that we talked about last time. She's also looking forward to any additional feedback that we have and opinions from both experienced product managers and aspiring PMs. So all the tips and tricks are welcome from Kristen. So again, feel free to DM them after her speech or write her an email, and she would love to have those. So without further ado, let's welcome Kristen up to the stage. Take it away.
Hello. Hopefully you can hear me and see some slides. Yep, all good. Brilliant. Okay. Hopefully this works. I am attempting to make sure I'm taking on board said feedback and looking much more directly at the camera, which is surprisingly challenging in this setup. Okay, so today I am here, Madam Toolmaster members and guests, to evangelize for you our risk management tactics. As mentioned, it's the second part of the speech about what could be our future in 30 years. Could we be looking at a tech product driven dystopia, so something like Skynet, where we're at war with our machines? Or could we be looking at something like the production of Wallies, where the machines are actually saving us from something like environmental collapse? Speaking of which, can I get a feel or like a poll of the audience here? So how many people here, like raise your hand if you think it's possible, in 30 years from now, think it's possible that biodiversity, so the number of plants and animals, could be restored, could be back to higher levels? Not too many. How many people here think that in 30 years, our climate could recover, hopefully based on some brilliant plans at COP26? Ooh, that's not looking good there. Okay, could equality actually improve and get better? Maybe, okay. And could we actually get healthier? Okay, that one's looking pretty good. Okay, I am delighted to say that there are actually some very positive and hopeful people here, because I particularly think in product, this was one of the takeaways that was really important from the last speech. Just repeating this from people who didn't get it last time. Staying hopeful and dreaming bigger is going to make it a lot easier for us in product teams to build the future that we want. The reason that we might not all be thinking that's possible at the moment is managing the risks when building tech products over the long-term time horizon is really, really challenging. These were some of the tactics that I shared last time that I have learned the hard way through 24 years of building such products that I would like to share with you and empower you to be able to do. So the first 3 were about the product manager, loving your space sustainably, be careful not to burn out, to grow and believe in yourself, you do not need to be perfect, that less is more, and that great quests build great teams. So continuing on the theme of what kind of risk management tactics can you take across the product team, the 5th one here, is to invest in your product culture. So documenting things like the tenets and choices that you make as a team into something like a tenets artifact that you share with stakeholders and you share with new people to the team gives you a really good way to articulate the way in which you approach risk. And also at your risk management check-ins, so depending on your seniority, whether you're doing that weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, it gives you something that you can actually touch base on. Have we changed the way in which we approach risk here? Do we need to change the artifacts and the way that we're teaching our culture? The next one that I have found particularly helpful, some of the biggest and worst risks when building tech products are the ones that you haven't actually articulated. The ones that you're not actually managing towards are the ones that can really surprise you. So looking for those assumptions, documenting them and killing them, each check-in by testing them, by validating them or invalidating them with research is really, really useful. Make sure it can't actually bite you. Okay, so the next one that I learned the hard way through the dot-com bubble burst is that early cash gives you options. Again, something I then learned the proper theory behind when I went to business school is if you have the ability that your product, so this is one of those tactics around the product itself, if you have the ability to generate cash out of the product early on, you have the ability to then reinvest that back in the product in the way that you want. You don't have to be taking investment funds from maybe not the ideal investor who has strings or prices attached to it that you don't really want to work with. So at your check-in, thinking about things like how much cash have we actually generated is a really good way to be defending yourself and managing risk for black swan events, the unexpected things like COVID that can actually come up and surprise you. Also, it's very powerful to be able to say, do we have a path to generate cash? Even if we're not generating cash right now, it has that moment in time, that pause where you can actually say, is there a possibility we have a white elephant product here, which is something that is never going to be commercially viable, and we need to pivot. And again, if you had been generating cash, you would have had an easier time of that pivot. This one's slightly more complicated. I learned this one building a machine learning product, and it's about building tech products, particularly at scale. So when you build a tech product to, let's say, fix a problem space, that tech product actually interacts with the problem space. And as it starts to scale, it changes the nature of the problem space. And you get what we call second order impacts. Looking for those second order impacts, particularly as you're scaling, is one of the most important things that you can be doing, particularly if you genuinely care about solving the problem and not creating worse complications. Again, for me, this was actually in that machine learning product while we were allocating work to people. Under certain circumstances at scale, they actually acted in the opposite way that we predicted from the algorithm. Looking at that outlier data, surveying the customers and actually saying, okay, so why did this actually happen? We then found that they actually had theories about how they could kind of try to drive the algorithm to the outcome they wanted. They didn't realize there were experiments happening. So we then started taking feedback from the customers and created a much better solution. Okay, one that I'm expecting hopefully will be relatively obvious to everybody here is that actually making sure your product can include more people is incredibly beneficial for scale, but also manages risks. So at each of those check-ins, ask yourself, have we removed bias here? Is there more groups and more audience who get a richer experience out of our product? Is everybody able to access it equally? So all up, there's 9 tactics that I would like to recommend. Learned the very, very hard way. Please benefit from my experience. The first 3 for yourself as a product, the next 3 for your product team, and the last 3 to manage risk in the product itself. Thank you very much.
Excellent speech. Great job.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to go back and watch last week's again so I get all the tips in one trip. All right. Can I have another moment or minute on the clock, please, Paisley? And if anybody has a question, come off mute and let's ask them.
Or more tips to share with other people.
One more tips to share.
Cool.
I have a question. So if nobody else wants to ask, the Toastmaster will ask one.
Okay.
I'm really curious about like second level, I think you called it second order problems that you create from your machine learning tool.
Yep.
I'm curious, how long was your product in the marketplace before you encountered that second round of problems, that second order, if you will, of problems?
Yeah, it kind of depends when you hit scale. That particular one, I came in as the product manager after it had been at scale for a couple of years. So it had been in the market probably for about 10 years at that point. But the nature of that problem happens when you start to kind of hit like 75% of the market.
Fantastic. Thank you. I've always worked in the earlier stage startups, so you don't usually get there yet. So I was like, wow, this is so interesting.
Good problem to have. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great problem to have. Cool. Any other questions? All right. Well, as always, if you have any feedback, it's welcome. She would love it. I think you're going to give this presentation, right, in another public setting.
Yes.
So the feedback will help her prepare for that, which is why we're all here. So if you have any, email it to her or DM her. and she'd love to have it. All right. Thanks, Kirsten.
Thank you.
And our third and final speaker for today is none other than Sarah. Sarah's speech title is Scrappy Product Management, a new addition to my PM tool belt. Her pathway is visionary communication, and the project she's specifically working on right now is research and presenting. So Sarah is a product manager in Civ Tech, the public sector. She's held various product roles, including business analyst, product owner, UX researcher, and product readiness release manager. For this project, Sarah will also like to give a special shout out to Anwesha Gosh for her help. So without further ado, welcome to the stage, Sarah. Take it away.
Have you ever wanted to better understand your customers, but you didn't have the data for analysis and you didn't have direct access to your customers? Madam Toolmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests, I want to tell you a story about one product team that had 3 such challenges, but overcame it with Scrappy product management. Now, before I get into that, let me give you some context. We were developing services, not products. And the organization that we were working for had a very strict PII policy, personal identification information, but we wanted to be user-centric. So enter in Scrappy product management. You might be asking yourself, what is that? Well, Andre Beno, who is an evangelist for Scrappy product management, and he's a growth product manager at Hotjar. He wrote an article, How to Implement Scrappy Product Management in Your Team. And I quote, being Scrappy is all about being resourceful and able to make the most of what you have. It also gets you going when the going gets tough, as being Scrappy implies finding ways to unblock yourself or your team, find creative solutions, and prioritize progress over process, end quote, which brings me to my team's first challenge. We wanted to find out where that data lived for the existing services so that we could analyze it. We decided that we were going to look at Google Analytics, but we found out that all that we could find were the number of service clicks. It didn't provide pain points. It didn't even provide information on the page duration, which would have been an indicator of some issue. And it did not follow our customer throughout the entire service workflow. We then went to the call center customer service reps, and we thought, well, they must be hearing from our clients or our customers on complaints. Unfortunately, the tracking mechanism that they were using was not fully mature and not fully implemented. We were back at ground zero. So that then it resulted in us doing a number of research of user behavioral analytics tools, and we found one that was blessed by our ISPO, Microsoft Clarity. We used the highest level of PII protection possible, and within just a very short time, we found a lot of data for our services that we could start making data-driven decisions. Which leads me to our second challenge, which was user research. One of our tools as PMs in our tool belt is user research, and product discovery coach Teresa Torres argues or advocates actually that a successful product or service is dependent on continuous engagement or checkpoints, a cadence, if you will, with our customers through interviews and through assumption testing. How are we going to do that? How are we going to do one-on-one testing when we didn't have access to our customer base? Enter in what we called soliciting the solicitor. During that time period, a number of our team members were working from home, and they were complaining about how the salespeople would constantly be ringing their doorbell throughout the day, Girl Scout cookies, sun tiles on the roofs, you name it, garage door openers. So we decided to shift things on its side and ask the solicitors for their help. We sat them down. We showed them a prototype of our service. We then walked through a moderated testing script. And then with their consent, we recorded portions of the user sessions. Armed with this qualitative data, we were able to go to our leadership and show them gaps in our assumptions that would have cost thousands of dollars had we actually gone to market or to launch before this. Which then leads me to our third challenge, and that is building a database of research candidates. And having said that, there's an article that Marty Kagan, founder of Silicon Valley Product Group, he wrote in the Product Manager Contribution, and in it he states, quote, "The product manager needs to be the acknowledged expert on the customer. This is what informs the many decisions that must be made. Without this deep customer knowledge, the product manager is just guessing." End quote. So we decided that we would include a survey at the end of our service requests from our customers. We asked for a feedback scoring, and we also provided them some opportunity for comment. And we asked them if they would please consider being testing candidates to provide their names and email addresses. As a result of this, the survey showed particular pain points with our services. And then what we did is we matched it up with session recordings, which is a feature part of this user behavioral analytics tool, where we could see the why and the how of where our customer was experiencing blockers. On top of that, we were able to curate a list of over 300 viable candidates for future testing. In conclusion, whether you work in a startup or a large enterprise, please consider Scrappy product management. You never know, it might help you when you're trying to find data that doesn't currently exist. It might help you think outside the box when you're trying to do one-on-one interviews, and it could possibly help you build a database for research of viable candidates. You never know. Maybe Scrappy product management might become part of your PM tool belt. Madame Toolmaster.
Thank you, Sarah. Awesome job. That was a fun speech. All right, can I get 1 minute on the clock again, Paisley, if you don't mind? And if anybody has a question for Sarah, let's come off mute and ask away.
Yeah, I have a question. In terms of like percentage of effort, how much would you say the percentage of effort was on the Scrappy side versus the non-Scrappy side?
That is a great question. I would say, since Scrappy was really not only the mindset, but essentially like a tool belt for us, and we really couldn't go the traditional route as far as the typical type of product management, I would say a good 75 to 80% was Scrappy. And then the base of that being our typical, your typical type of product management when you're doing collaboration or what have you, but it's basically rogue. It's trying to find a way around a rock, around a blockage, if you will, and you try all these different things that you're pulling out of your tool belt. But again, it's about progress over process. Great question.
Quick question. This is Siri, our Sirisha. I also go by Siri, so I see another Siri in this group. So I often find a dilemma, or I have to fight for people to agree with a Scrappy solution. So what are the tips you bring up to what are the metrics or data that you use under your tool belt to prove your point, we should go with a Scrappier solution than the otherwise?
Very good question. I would say that in many times it wasn't a question of asking permission. It was, we had to prove results. And so it was trying basically A/B testing, a lot of A/B testing using Scrappy, trying to do maybe 2 experiments at the same time to see which one would come in quicker, because as you know, quicker to market, better. So I would say that once you had results, so once we had some results using that user behavioral analytics tool, leadership was much more open to the fact that, and realizing that we have to go rogue because otherwise we wouldn't be able to accomplish our mission. So I would say it does also include acceptance or I don't want to say permission, but it does also include your manager being able to have your back at that point as well. But as long as you can provide maybe some data or metrics that you couldn't have before, I think you're good to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent questions. All right. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Paisley, for the time. We are now going to move into our next section of our meeting, which is our table topic section. So Sheena will be our table topics master for today, and I'm going to hand it straight over to her so we can get the maximum amount of questions out before 8 minutes after the hour. So Sheena, take it away.
Thank you. So most of us are familiar with the traditionally popular product management books such as Inspired, Hooked, and Cracking the PM Interview, to name a few. Can you name an untraditional book that's on your bookshelf that has surprisingly helped you in your PM career? And then just give us an idea of how it's helped. And this one, I will call on Rosalia. Are you here? Maybe not. Okay.
Hey, so sorry. Okay. I'm pet sitting, and so kind of having trouble here with a dog and a cat. Yes. So you mentioned in your question a non-traditional book that has helped me in my PM career. I'm in the middle of reading Expect to Win, and I believe it's by Carla Harris. And she really outlines how like the first 6 months of your career at a new job are very impactful for making it known like what your goals are, kind of what trajectory you want to take in the company, that sort of thing. And so I think right now it's not really PM related, but I think the way that she talks about how you should take importance in your career, how you should expect to win, and how you should expect to really make it known that your goal, like for example, my goal is to someday transition from project manager over to product. So kind of how to start thinking about what are some of the skills that I can start to learn now as a project manager that might be able to help me when I transition into maybe an associate or product manager role, right? And so it's not necessarily PM related, but I think the book has some really good nuggets in it. And I think she's done some TED Talk speaking, and she has a really high position at some bank consulting firm. I can't remember. I've gone through the introductions and now I'm like halfway in, and I keep picking it up and putting it back down. But overall, I'm finding it to be very useful. Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Thank you, Rosalia. Appreciate that response. The second question is, so the mentors in my career are definitely a part of my PM toolkit, and I am so grateful for all of their support. So take a moment to think about the mentors who have influenced you during your PM career. And then tell us about that person and share why you're grateful for them. And so for this question, I will call on Surisha.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, can you repeat the question? I'm guilty of multitasking. My daughter walked in.
Sure. So the question is just tell us about the person who's a mentor to you and just why you're grateful to have them as part of your PM career.
Sure. So Definitely, I think I have answered this last one of the meetings also. My husband is one of the mentors, and in professional or in my company, I have two senior product manager who are my mentors as well. So how they helped me is when I started my career in IT. Actually, I have an engineering background in electrical engineer, but I ended up doing product management. So it was a big shift for me from going from working in Siemens and working as an electrical engineer to shift into IT and then get into product itself, first product owner and then product manager. So they help me in understanding. So I always set my goals, right? They help me understand like what would be my next step, like what would be my like 2 years down the lane, what toolkit I need to have to become a better product manager. So they help me with a lot of resources, courses. I was able to take some courses in product management. So the biggest help was like just guiding me through what I need to learn, right? And how I can be a product manager versus a good product manager. So that's I would say those two people are like help me a lot and helping me a lot even now. This Toastmasters Club also, I think I came to know from one of my mentors as well. Thank you. Over to you, Table Topics Master.
Thank you so much. The next question, Sarah talked to us about being scrappy today, and I'd like to just pick up on that theme a little bit because as PMs, we are well versed in being scrappy to get things done. So tell us how you keep calm, cool, and focused in those moments when you have to be really scrappy. And for this one, I will select Bonnie, who was a guest today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me to speak. The question, how do I manage to keep focused and calm while being scrappy and having, and I'm assuming, which is true for virtually any PM here, is 1,000 different fires that are burning or about to ignite at any point. The one, I would say, one thing that had really helped me in staying calm has been the idea of being stoic, stoicism. This was something I discovered, I think, when I was back as a teenager. I used to have very, very hot tempers. I think a lot of teenagers, adolescents might have those periods too, but very easy to ignite and be super angry or reactive to many things. And what I realized was there's a difference between how you respond to something versus how you react to something. And being in control means you choose your response. So how you respond to the news of somebody passing is a choice that you make. How you can have at that moment. If you didn't receive that news, that person or the animal might still have already passed away. But it's how you choose to respond to the news and how you decide you want to respond. So it has helped me be aware that at every point in time, I actually have a choice to make. And that gives me a much more locus of control in terms of how I speak with my peers or family, as well as also whether I put on filters, whether I should say something or not, whether it's going to be appropriate or something that will bite later on down the line. And I think what in turn, it also makes me speak a little bit slower. That also forces people to realize that when I speak, pay attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like we can get another question in. So as product managers, we obviously have to stay organized, and we use a lot of tips and tricks to keep us organized. So I want to ask you to take a moment to just step into the role of a product evangelist and tell us about the tool that helps you really stay organized. And for this one, I will call on and Sweet George, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing.
Hi, yes, Ansu George. Madam Toolmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. Being organized is something I am constantly battling and figuring out on the way, even for my regular lifestyle or at work. So recently, like this year, I came across a lot of videos where people are actually talking about, how to organize your schedule, how you plan on a Sunday, how you make the timetable for your week, and so on. So I've been trying to pick up some tips and tricks, and hopefully, I think this is set as a goal for me, like in the next 6 to 7 months, I want to become better at it. So a couple of things that I have started using. The most basic is, I read from a friend that, the first thing you need to see when you wake up in the morning is to see you have a plan, and then you will be very efficient to, check mark those plans. So what I started doing is the previous night, I write my top to-dos on a whiteboard, which is sort of kept in a visible distance from my bed. So when I wake up in the morning, I know the first few things that I know. Sometimes it's gym, sometimes it's the basics are there. Sometimes it's to send certain emails, sometimes it is to go for a walk, but I love the act of just, tossing it out. So that makes it very satisfying to me. So that has really helped me, the fact that I see my to-dos as the first thing when I wake up, so I'm on a go. The next is Google Calendar. I noticed that I don't like mixing my personal commitments and my work commitments, but I started using a single view for that this year, and I love seeing what I have to do in each hour. Sometimes it is tasks, sometimes it is just cooking, sometimes it is meetings. So bringing it all together on a Google Calendar has really saved my life. A third thing that I've started using is Notion. I sort of try to manage my life like a Jira board where I have all my to-dos and it's going into progress and so on. So I try to pick up tasks every week and make sure I finish that during the week. So Notion, Google Calendar, and just a plain whiteboard have been my toolkit to remain organized. Over to you, Table Toastmaster.
Thank you so much. Let's squeeze one more question in. So we've talked a lot about what we have as a part of like on tool belts, but what I'd like to know is what's something you've removed from your PM tool belt? And for this one, I will actually go to our tool master, Lori, if that's okay.
Sure, I'll take that one. Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. To repeat the question, what is something that I have actually taken off of my tool belt? I would say it is writing perfect Jira tickets or Asana or whatever tool that you use. When I first started as a product manager, actually Amy in this club is somebody who taught me how to be a PM, and I focused so much on writing perfect tickets. Like I had to make sure it had all the things in it and all the documentation or whatever. Now that I'm about 6 years into this journey, I realized that the engineers probably didn't read the ticket anyways. Like I am very lucky if they even read it after we refined it. The QA person is going to read it. So what I try to make sure to do is making sure that the QA person has what they need to make sure the story is testable and that the documentation is more for them than the engineers themselves. So I would say the one thing I've definitely taken off my product management tool belt is this need for perfection. And similar to what Sarah said earlier, is aiming for progress over process. So I have gotten a little more lax in some of my process, but that is because I'm getting better progress out of the lack of process than being a process hound. So that is something I've definitely taken out of my tool belt. Thank you. And back to you, Madam Toastmaster, or Table Topics Master.
Thank you. And thank you everyone who answered questions today for Table Topics. And I will pass it back over to you, Madam Toolmaster.
Thank you very much. So today we did not have a vote counter. So if you all could DM your votes for your favorite table topics answer over to Sheena, that would be awesome. She's going to take on that responsibility for us. I also tried to make a list of everybody that answered the question. So I'll put my list in the chat, and if I missed anyone, I'm sorry, and add to this list that I got. So let me put that in there. All right. So while we are tallying up the votes, we are going to move into our third and final section of our club meeting, and that is our evaluation section. So as we saw earlier, Erica is our general evaluator today. So I am going to turn it over to Erica, and she and her team of evaluators are going to give us their reports. So Erica, welcome to the stage, and I'm excited to hear how we did today.
Thank you so much, Lori. So what we'll do first is go through each of the prepared speeches, and then go on to our general reports. So Monique, I'd like to invite you up to give your evaluation.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. And can I see Amelia? There we go. Hi, Amelia. Well, first of all, I want to say congratulations on completing your icebreaker. That is super important milestone in your Toastmasters journey. So just take a minute to celebrate that. I want to say that you immediately drew me in, showing vulnerability and relatedness by sharing your nervousness and revealing the new experiences you're going through. I know it's not easy to share that kind of information with the group, but I just really appreciated that. I felt that you were connecting with your story as you shared tips on a beginner's mindset and also the importance of having a plan, which I feel are super helpful takeaways for us as we all battle change as product managers. And I also thought you had a really great pace with your speech and pauses to help illustrate your point. For next time, you might consider taking one of the tools you shared on how to embrace change and dive deeper into it and why it's been helpful for you. When I heard your answer to Tanya's question, it made me want to learn more, and I'm hoping that could be a topic for a future speech, because I would love to hear more about that journey. And I loved how you shared the different factual details about yourself, but you're also telling us about how you think and how you are as a person and as a product manager, which is so wonderful to learn. Overall, just excellent job. And Amelia, I'm looking forward to many more speeches from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Monique.
Thank you, Monique. Next up is Tanya.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. And where is Kirsten? There she is. Hi, Kirsten. I wish I had seen part one. I really tried to find it and I asked around, but I wasn't able to see part one. So I do appreciate that there was, you gave a recap up front. You clearly have a passion for this topic and it comes through with how relaxed and interactive you were. I found it felt very natural and you were, minimally reading from the slides. So great job. Thank you very much. I thought you worked the two screens really well, but there still wasn't a lot of looking at the camera directly, but it's also this virtual world that we live in. And I know that's hard to have both the slides and those things going on at the same time. As an evaluator, I had to pay close attention to what you were saying, but because of the slides, I also had to read and absorb them and try to make connections between what you were saying and what was on the slides. I personally found this challenging. And I wonder if it was also challenging for folks that are listening. So, there was a lot on the slides and then there was a lot that you were saying. And so I found that it was a bit of a distraction. It could just be me because I was evaluating. There was just so much to take in a short period of time. So because of that, I suggest less slide movement. And so in terms of movement in terms of what popped up on each slide, because there was interaction even on the slides themselves, and then in the number of slides, so that we can focus on your message and your words and your beautiful speech and the message, and then use the slides maybe just as a backup, have them in the background with the points already on them. In the end, you had the 9 points from the 2 speeches, which was fantastic, and you had them, you verbally summarize them into the thirds. And so I think on that last slide, maybe have a visual of the three groups that you group them into, right? So that we can take that away with us. And because I honestly was, trying to group them visually myself. So it would have been good just to have that on the slide as your last slide and the last thing that you said. But overall, amazing job. Very well researched, very well put together, and good luck where you're taking this on to the next, right? You're giving the speech somewhere else. So good luck to you, and thanks again.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Up next is Sam.
Hello, Women in Product, and a special hello to Sarah. Sarah, I am so excited to bring you my feedback on your speech. Your speech was very well structured right out of the gate. You also asked me to watch out for your energy throughout the speech, and you were very consistent across in delivery. Really commend your ability to stay enthusiastic and bring excitement to product scrappiness, or being a scrappy product manager, as something that's a little more abstract, and bringing it into a real world example and being really excited about it to tell everyone your story. I really commend that. So really excellent job on both structure and also your delivery. A few additional call outs to what you did really well before I give you a few areas of note. In addition to that structure and your delivery, really found that your example and your story resonated with our group, not only really in relation to the topic, which was product tools, but when you bring up a problem that's a little more less spoken about, something like you're trying to find customer feedback, but you don't have the typical quote tools or means of sourcing that feedback. That is certainly something that a lot of product managers or folks in product can run into, but may not necessarily speak about either in an interview or just talking about the product management role in general. So I personally really appreciated your speech topic and the story that you brought to the team and to everyone here. So a few areas of notes. One, just watch out for those so's in your speech. There are a few weaved in there when you were going from each part of your story, going through each those 3 different hurdles that the team went through in being Scrappy product manager. So just something to watch out for there. In addition to that, I really liked how you were quoting folks within the product management space. A really great way if you were putting together an article or a book about Scrappy product management. Really awesome to have those other sources. However, in the speech, when you do several of those quotes, it takes away from the value or gravity when you do quote someone from the product management space. So I would recommend, if you approach this speech in the future, to review when is this quote going to bring the most value, the most impact when sharing my story, and which ones maybe aren't as necessary and could potentially take the audience out of your firsthand experience to further streamline your story. Other than that, again, excellent job, Sarah. It was a pleasure listening to your speech and giving you feedback, and looking forward to hearing more. General Evaluator.
Thanks everybody for such wonderful feedback to our speakers today. Next up is a report from our grammarian, Meghana.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Great job, everyone. Amazing speeches. So we have had 2 speakers, so 3 of them using our word of the day, Amulya, Kristen, and Sheena. Since this is my first time as a grammarian, please let me know if I may have missed someone. As of grammatical uses, we have a pretty good group here. I didn't find any improper usage. There were 2 minor things that stood out to me, Kirsten and Sirisha. Please don't mind for this feedback. Kirsten, one suggestion for you would be to reduce the overuse of word actually. I observed that there were about 3 actuallys in one sentence. And Sirisha, suggestion for you is you sometimes tend to leave a sentence incomplete. Probably it's because you're thinking and jumping from one thought to another. And while you're doing so, the previous sentence remains incomplete and you move on to the second thought. So my suggestion would be maybe that's something you could consider working on. Then there are 2 quotes. I wouldn't call them quotes, but words that I really loved, and I would probably write on a sticky note and put it on my screen. One is Bonnie, love your speech. Thank you for the concept or the introduction to the word stoicism, and the way you put how you react and respond. And basically, those 2 words really stood out to me. And Lori, aiming for progress over process. I'm definitely going to stick that on my screen when there's a conflict between product teams. So thank you, Madam General Evaluator. This was the evaluation for today.
Thank you, Meghana. Up next, we have Minal, our awe counter.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. So yeah, I already said and so to start off with. Starting with Lori, you've talked the most today, so take that into consideration. You have 2 uhs, 6 ums, and 5 so's. Amy, you had 1.
We lost her?
I think we did.
Oh no.
Well, we can come back to her. See if she gets unfrozen in a minute. Paisley, would you like to give us our timer report?
Yes, happy to do so. Everyone did such a good job today. I'm really impressed with y'all's perception of time. I'm usually not good at that stuff, so no one went too far over. I'll start with the speeches, the prepared speeches. So for Amelia, the speech time requirement was 4 to 6 minutes. And for this one, I apologize. I've never seen Chrome crash before, but I guess my stopwatch that I was running was too much for it to handle. My Chrome did crash in the middle of timing this, but it was definitely within the time limit, not too late because it crashed after the 4-minute mark, but it was definitely below 6 minutes. So good job, Amelia. You were definitely within the time there. Kirsten, the speech time requirement was 5 to 7 minutes. You were at 6:50. Great job. Sarah, the speech time requirement was 5 to 7 minutes. You were at 6:26. Also great. Let's see. For the table topics, we have a limit of 2 minutes, and Rosalia was at 1:31. Sarisha was at 1:33. Bonnie was at 2:05. Anzu was at 2:21, and Lori was at 1:27. So great job on the time there. The evaluations were a 2 to 3 minute time span requirement. And Monique, you were at 1:43. Tanya, you were at 2:43. And Sam, you were at 3:16. So good job, guys. And that is all I have for the time. Did I do it correctly?
You did. Thank you so much, Paisley.
Thanks.
And Minal is back. Minal, would you like to start your report over?
Thank you, General Evaluators. Apologies for the internet. It's been going in and out today. So starting over, Lori, you had 2 uhs, 6 ums, and 5 so's. Amy, you had 1 Erica, you had 3 uhs, 10 plus ums, and 1 so. Amelia, you had 1 and 3 you knows. Christian, you had likes. Sarah, you had 2 uhs, 1 so, and 2 repeats. Monique, you had 1 and 1 repeat. Tanya, you had 4 ums, 1 so, and 1 repeat. Sarah, you had 3 uhs and 1 Meghana, you had 2 uhs, 3 ums, and 2 so's. Sheena, you had 1 and 1 so. Rosalia, you had 1 2 ums, and 3 so's. Sirisha, you had 3 uhs and 4 ums. Bonnie, you had 1 1 and Ansu, you had 1 2 ums, 2 so's, 1 like, and 2 you knows. Thank you. Back to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you so much, Minal. Okay, so now that wraps up, oh wait, that wraps up our evaluation reports, and I'm going to give the general evaluation report now. Beautiful meeting today, everybody. Lori definitely wins most creative Toastmaster of the day. I think we can all agree. It's very fun, Lori. Thank you so much. And we were only 2 minutes late today, even though we did have a computer glitch, and that was our first one in over a year. So no worries about that at all. Great job, everybody, introducing your roles today. It speaks to how prepared you all are and ready to do your best. So thank you for that. Speakers, beautiful job today with all of the speeches. Wow. They were all engaging and fantastic, and we all learned a lot from them. You all did a wonderful job. I would encourage you all to get your speech titles, what pathway you're on, and what project you're working on into the agenda ahead of time. I think it's really important for us all to share what our paths are with each other and where we're at, so that we can encourage each other along the way and kind of connect on our pathways. So please do that. That would be great. Beautiful word of the day, Meghana. It was very challenging. It was a great word. For table topics, really great questions today, Sheena. They were very informative. Speakers all did an excellent job. I really enjoy table topics. Not only are we learning, skills and tips and tricks, but I really feel like we're learning more about each other and how we work and function in the world. So I really enjoy our table topics together. Also great time, everybody watching time. If you went over a little bit, just a little reminder to keep an eye on your timer to help with that. Lori, great job making the meeting fun, keeping people engaged, even between speeches, and encouraging feedback, which is really important for all of us. Yeah, the only thing I would ask people to also do is keep your video on so that we know that you're still there and engaged. I think it helps us too. All right, so that is my report for the day. I am going to hand it back over to Sheena, who will let us know who our winner is for table topics.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. So thank you again to everyone for participating in table topics. Our winner is Bonnie, coming in with our top votes. So thank you so much, Bonnie, and thank you everyone else who participated. And I think I'm passing it back over to Madam Toolmaster.
That's right. Thank you, Sheena, and thanks for jumping in and filling that vote counter role for us today. I think, Erica, did you have any more closing remarks you wanted to make as the president before I take off the Toastmaster hat?
Sure. I would like to take the opportunity to say hi to our guests one more time and to invite them up to share their experience with the experience today. And if you have any feedback for us, that would be great.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, I was off camera for a bit. I realized midway in the meeting that I haven't had my breakfast and I was really hungry. So sorry about that. But I enjoyed the experience. This was really, really fun. And I got to learn so many things from everyone. So I look forward to attending the next meeting and becoming a member soon.
Thank you so much for that feedback. Let's see. Anybody else or would any of our guests like to say anything? Bonnie, I saw.
I could say something. A little bit of background. This is actually, I used to be part of a Toastmasters many years ago, over 10 years ago, actually, when I lived in San Francisco. And I thought this meeting resonated very well, brought back a lot of memories about the fun I had in previous Toastmasters. What I did find was I love how much more organized this Toastmaster is. We trusted to grow PMs to be much better than non-PMs at organizing. Thank you so much. I thought the timer with the background and the changing color was particularly very handy and useful. That's definitely one thing that our previous didn't have. We used to have a traffic light where we just literally physically turned the light into red, green, and yellow. Thank you all for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. I hope to see you at the next meeting.
Yes, thank you.
Would anybody else like to say anything? All right, Lori, I'm going to hand it back to you as our VPE for your announcements.
All right, thanks, Erica. So yes, I am no longer the Toastmaster. I'm now switching hats, or I took off my vest, so you know that I'm the VPE. Let me grab the sheet with our upcoming roles on it so I can put it in the chat for everyone. All right, that is in the chat so you can see what you have coming up for our next meeting. Minal, I would love for you to take over the Toastmaster role, so you will be our Toastmaster next meeting. But of course, if anybody can't make it, please let us know as soon as possible so we can help fill your role for you. And the best way to let us know if you're not going to be around or to have some insight into what role you might have is to literally tell me what role you want. So I also just put in the chat a form that you can fill out that comes directly to myself, and it will let me know what roles you're interested in, and it makes it a little bit easier for me to pick the roles for everybody. So with that business out of the way, the last couple of things I want to do is, one, I want to congratulate Erica on completing her level 1 pathway. I also want to let you all know that if you did give a speech today, to make sure you go back into the Toastmasters portal and check that speech off so you too can complete your different levels of your pathway. And then last but not least, if you haven't signed up for a pathway or you have no idea what I'm talking about with pathways, feel free to ask me. I'm happy to walk anybody through pathways that needs to. We typically do that every month. So we will do one in November for everybody as well. But if you have questions, you can always feel free to stick around after a meeting, and we're happy. The leadership team is happy to answer them. I think most of our club does have a pathway picked out, but if you don't, yeah, feel free to dive into the Toastmasters website and see what they have available and ask us any questions that you have. All right, those are my announcements for next week, and I'm going to pass it over to Amy, our SSA, to wrap us up and get us out of here for the weekend.
Thanks, Lori. And thanks everyone for a great meeting. I really enjoyed it today. And with that, I will go ahead and stop the recording and we will be adjourned.